Hello and welcome to the coronavirus lockdown live stream, the show that brings welcome levity to the end of the world, lifting the spirits of many of you currently in self-isolation by infecting as many as possible with comfort and distraction as the apocalypse unfolds. In the green room, I have ready and raring to go, and it must be said, partially clothed, Arthur Weber and Sasha D'Souza. They'll be joining us later on for their respective segments. And Arthur, if you're listening, please can you WhatsApp me a suggestion for today's sing-along with Arthur, one that's preferably coronavirus themed. So it fits in well with what we're all experiencing with coronavirus. So I'll leave you to mull that over. And while you're all listening, while I have your rapt attention, and as the live stream fills up, we currently have 22 watching. Welcome all. I will finish the saga of Bill Bryson's The Body, namely his chapter on viruses. There is just 3.5 pages to go. I'm sure you'll agree that having come this far, we may as well see it through to the bitter end. So I begin on page 332. If we don't die so much from communicable diseases anymore, plenty of other maladies have stepped in to fill the gap. Two types of disease in particular are more visible now than they were in times past, in part at least because we aren't being killed off by other things first. One is genetic diseases. 20 years ago, about 5,000 genetic diseases were known. Today, it is 7,000. The number of genetic diseases is constant. What has changed is our ability to identify them. Sometimes one rogue gene can cause a breakdown, as with Huntington's disease, which used to be known as Huntington's chorea, from the Greek for dance, a strange and decidedly insensitive reference to the jerky movements of Huntington's sufferers. It is a thoroughly wretched disease affecting about one person in every 10,000. Symptoms usually first appear when the victim is in his or her 30s or 40s and progress that's a word I have not encountered before, I'm going to be honest, ineluctably to senility and premature death. It is all because of one mutation in the HTT gene, which produces a protein called huntingtin, one of the largest and most complex proteins in the human body, and we have no idea what huntingtin is for. Far more often complex genes are at play, usually in ways too complex to fully understand. The number of genes that have been implicated in inflammatory bowel disease, for example, is comfortably over 100. At least 40 have been linked to type 2 diabetes, and that is before you start to factor in other determinants like health and lifestyle. Most diseases have a complex array of triggers. That means it is often impossible to pinpoint a cause. Take multiple sclerosis, a disease of the central nervous system in which sufferers experience a gradual onset of paralysis and loss of motor control, nearly always beginning before the age of 40. It is indubitably genetic, but it also has a geographical element that no one can quite explain. People from Northern Europe get it much more often than people from warmer climes. As David Bainbridge has observed, why a temperate climate should make you attack your own spinal cord is not so obvious. Yet the effect is clear. It has even been shown that if you are a northerner, you can reduce your risk by relocating southward before puberty. It also affects women disproportionately, again, for no reason that anyone has yet determined. Mercifully, most genetic diseases are quite rare, often vanishingly so. One of the more famous sufferers of a rare genetic disorder was the artist Henry de Toulouse-Lautrec, who is thought to have suffered from, oh, good grief, there's always one word, pycnodysostosис. Toulouse-Lautrec was normally proportioned until puberty, but when his legs stopped growing while his trunk continued growing to normal adult size. But then his legs stopped growing while his trunk continued growing to normal adult size. In consequence, when standing, he looked as if he was on his knees. Only about 200 cases of the disorder have ever been recorded. Rare diseases are defined as diseases that afflict no more than one person in 2,000, and there is a paradox at their heart, which is that although each disease doesn't affect many people, collectively they affect a lot. Altogether, there are about 7,000 rare diseases, so many that about one person in 17 in the developed world has one, which isn't very rare at all. But sadly, so long as a disease affects only a small number of people, it is unlikely to get much research attention. For 90% of rare diseases, there are no effective treatments at all. A second category of disorders that have become more common in modern times and represent a much greater risk for most of us is what Professor Daniel Lieberman of Harvard calls mismatched diseases, that is, diseases brought on by our indolent and overindulgent modern lifestyles. The idea, roughly, is that we are born with the bodies of hunter-gatherers, but pass our lives as couch potatoes. If we want to be healthy, we need to eat and move about a little more like our ancient ancestors did. That doesn't mean we have to eat tubers and hunt wildebeest. That's, I know for a fact, what Arthur does. It means we should consume a lot less processed and sugary foods in smaller amounts and get more exercise. Failure to do that, however, is what is giving us the disorders like type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease that are killing us in greater numbers. Indeed, as Lieberman notes, medical care is actually making things worse by treating the symptoms of mismatched diseases so effectively that we unwittingly perpetuate their causes. As Lieberman puts it with chilling bluntness, you are most likely going to die from a mismatched disease. Even more chillingly, he believes that 70% of the diseases that kill us could easily be preventable if we would just live more sensibly. When I met Washington University's Michael Kinch in St. Louis, I asked him what he believed was the greatest disease risk to us now. Flu, he said, without hesitation. Flu is way more dangerous than people think. For a start, it kills a lot of people already, about 30,000 to 40,000 every year in the United States, and that's in a so-called good year. But it also evolves very rapidly, and that's what makes it especially dangerous. Every February, the World Health Organization and the US Centers for Disease Control get together and decide what to make the next flu vaccine from, usually based on what's going on in Eastern Asia. The problem is that flu strains are extremely variable and really hard to predict. You are probably aware that all flus have names like H5N1 or H3N2. That is because every flu virus has two types of proteins on its surface, hemagglutinin and neuraminidase, and these account for the H and N in their names. H5N1 means that the virus combines the fifth known iteration of hemagglutinin and the first known iteration of neuraminidase. And for some reason, that is a particularly nasty combination. H5N1 is the version commonly known as bird flu, and it kills between 50 to 90% of victims, says Kinch. Luckily, it isn't readily transmissible between humans. So far this century, it has killed about 400 people, roughly 60% of those it has infected, but look out if it mutates. Based on all the available information, the World Health Organization and Center for Disease Control announced their decision on 28th of February, and all the flu vaccine makers in the world begin working on the same strain. Says Kinch, from February to October, they make the new flu vaccine in the hope that we will be ready for the next big flu season. But when a really devastating new flu emerges, there's no guarantee that we will actually have targeted the right virus. In the 2017-2018 flu season, to take one recent example, people who had been vaccinated were only 36% less likely to get flu than those who hadn't been vaccinated. In consequence, it was a bad year for flu in America, with a death toll estimated at 80,000. In the event of a really catastrophic epidemic, one that killed children or young adults in large numbers, say, Kinch believes we wouldn't be able to produce vaccine fast enough to inoculate everyone, even if the vaccine was effective. The fact is, he says, we are really no better prepared for a bad outbreak today than we were when Spanish flu killed tens of millions of people 100 years ago. The reason we haven't had another experience like that isn't because we have been especially vigilant, it's because we have been lucky. So that was obviously written last year, or it was published last year, significantly before the outbreak of the coronavirus. And although it's very, very sobering to read and makes you realize how fortunate you are just to be breathing, it's good, I believe, again, to know one's enemy. And we bring into the stream a fortunately clothed version of Arthur Weber and Sasha D'Souza. You should have seen what I was seeing when I first saw them pop up in the live stream.
I want to know more about this, Arthur. I want to know more about this. Come on.
Hello, guys.
How you doing?
Yeah, very well.
Arthur, can we hear you?
Yeah, don't you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. It's
Maybe
just Sasha has weird Wi-Fi in Australia. That's all that we can say. I've visited. I've seen it at its worst.
And white earphones. And the white earphones have a certain...
Can you hear me, Lloyd?
I can hear you, Sasha.
Okay,
me too.
I just haven't got Arthur. Shall I drop off and try again?
Give it another go. Yeah, I think we can all hear Arthur though.
Yes, the viewers can hear me too, I guess.
Yeah, they'd be in uproar if they couldn't.
But yeah, the audio signal has a lot to travel to Australia.
Mm. Well, here's the thing, Arthur. Nothing gets kind of complaints. I'm speaking now as a YouTube creator.
Yeah.
Nothing gets complaints quite like interviews that are conducted over vast distances. And it's like sometimes people seem to expect the production values to be Hollywood level. And you're explaining to them, look, this conversation would not have been possible only 20 years ago or so. You know, let's just be grateful that the technology has made it possible for it to even work sometimes, let alone most of the time, you know?
The marvels of technology bring us closer together as a united organization.
It's already starting to trigger people.
All
I
praise
must
to
apologize.
Jehovah.
It sounds like Sasha. It sounds like you can hear him now, Sasha.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, unfortunately.
Sasha being brutally honest there, it must be said.
This is the end of the world.
Oh, he's getting his singing voice.
He's warming up.
This is
He's
good.
warming up for his segment. Have you decided what song you want to sing later, Arthur?
Yes, one that is really in theme with our...
Well, don't tell everyone.
No, I'm not.
Instead, if there's a private chat function on your screen, just private chat it to me and I will make sure it's arranged. Because we did find out last time that it works better with the audio if I play it at my end rather than you playing it at your end.
But I'd love to retry playing it in my end. I won't start, but let's see whether it was just a temporary
So you want
glitch.
to try again playing it from
Yes.
your end?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in that case, I'll just leave it to you. And
If it's not working, then we'll resort
what's
to...
the worst that could happen? Leaving the
Arthur, if
decision
it's-
to you.
Yeah, if the music doesn't work, we're quite happy just to have you sing a cappella to us. It's fine, no problem.
Rianne says, "Good morning, lovely gang."
Good morning,
Good morning,
Rian.
Good morning, Rianne. And Eric says, "And greetings from southern Louisiana, where there are still way too many people out and about." Sorry to hear that, Eric.
They're just not getting it. Wow.
It is strange, isn't it? And actually, I have an anecdote along those lines. You'll remember from yesterday's live stream, I was regaling you all with the story of people in Split who had a nice sunny day and decided we're going to head down to the beach. And the police showed up and they were like, you know, F the police, we're going to swim and you can't do anything
NWA
about
style.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. And the police were like, we're arresting you. And so they got arrested, which I was really glad to hear. I like to see law and order and common sense prevailing. And so I got a fresh story from Dijana after finishing. I think it was yesterday afternoon. She was telling me there are obviously lockdown conditions in Croatia and people taking it all very seriously. And one guy was saying, well, I am going to go out. I'm sick and tired of being inside. The government can't tell me to stay inside. So I'm going out. And if anyone snitches on me, he was doing all this on Facebook, by the way.
Oh.
If anyone snitches on me, they're going to pay for it. So basically, he was threatening some kind of physical retaliation against anyone who reported him to the police for going out in breach of the lockdown. And he got arrested. So it's just honestly, people, you know, you wouldn't say that about murder or theft, would you? I'm going to go and rob this bank, and if anyone snitches on me, you're going to pay for it. You're going to get arrested for it. So why should it be any different with, with a pandemic lockdown? So,
and that's a good point you make. People need to start seeing this as seriously as they would any other sort of law that's been put into place. Around the world, the laws have been put into place for a reason, and that's exactly what they are. They're laws. They started off as guidelines, but of course, humans being humans, we couldn't take guidelines. So enforceable laws, like here, I think it's a $10,000 fine is available. Is it 10,000? I can't remember. Maybe someone from Australia can clarify that. But there's some hefty fines for people who don't have a legitimate reason. Now, the police also have discretionary power as to whether they enforce that. But the fact is, the law is there for a reason.
Well, I think as well in Croatia, there's a bit of kind of, what's the word? There's a little bit of despondency and people taking things for granted because the death toll here so far is only 6 for the whole country. But I think that's mainly because the country isn't very densely populated. There's only about 5 or 6 million in the country, and the only really densely populated cities are that I know of are Split and Zagreb. Apart from that, people are they have a lot of distance between them, so it's not an ideal kind of hunting ground for the coronavirus. However, we are just across the Adriatic from Italy, and if you were to drive to Italy, it used to be that Croatia and Italy bordered each other, but now there's just a little tiny bit of Slovenia before you're in Italy. But nevertheless, that illustrates how close Italy is. You can't take any risks with this thing, and if we manage to get through the whole thing with it staying at 6 or only slightly increasing, it will be a miracle, and we should all be very grateful. But it will be because of social distancing, rather than social distancing being unnecessary.
Romania reached 80.
Well, there you go. There you go. And what's the population of Romania, Arthur?
19 million.
Okay. Wow. So again, I'm seeing a trend. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I'm seeing a trend here with
but like still a couple of hundred new infections every day.
Yeah.
It just seems
Yeah.
to me that the more densely populated a country is, the more.
For example, let me tell you a story here short. The city of Suceava, that's in the northeastern part of Romania, is completely quarantined after there has been some malpractice actually at the hospital, and several doctors even got infected.
Wow.
And I guess
Wow.
28% of the deaths in Romania are in Suceava.
Wow.
So they closed the city completely down.
And that's
And yeah, the
at least
fines.
they're acting.
Yeah, the fines have raised 20 times the original amount.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So
Well, they
they
have to
started
take it
between.
seriously. If the populace is going to not take it seriously, the police have to step in and
Yes.
law enforcement, and they absolutely do need these fines. If people aren't going to take the pandemic seriously, hopefully they'll take a hit to their wallet seriously. So
I guess over €1 million have been set up as fines for those who transgressed and broke the law regarding social distancing and going out without any reason.
Jay Proctor saying, "Good morning, all. Still alive in Germany." Hello, Jay. Thank you for joining us.
Guten Morgen, Jay.
Gene Khan says, "Staying alive by the Bee Gees for a sing along." Well, I think that Arthur needs to be
good parody of that.
Arthur needs to be wearing a certain tightness of pants in order to reach some of those notes. If I remember my if I remember my Arthur, he does need to be wearing a certain tightness. So we'll see. We'll see.
But probably Tony will unfriend me from.
It's not appropriate, brother.
JW Apps social media platform, and I'm not risking into wearing tight pants.
Simon Instone.
If you get a chance, if you get a chance, jump onto YouTube and have a listen to the parody of Staying Alive called "Staying Inside." Very, very good track.
Stay inside, stay inside. Stay inside.
I fear, Arthur, that what's happening at this point is that you're preempting your segment. I think save it for the big reveal. Don't.
Well,
manage people's expectations.
The song I thought of isn't along these lines.
Okay,
it's along a different line. So that's why I'm a
little bit nervous that I'm entrusting my channel in your hands at this point, because you could pick potentially something that is entirely inappropriate for YouTube, but we'll just have to wait and see.
That's never stopped us before.
Exactly. Simon Instone saying, "I've decided to join Scientology instead." April Fools. Yeah, it is indeed April the 1st, and it was a year ago today that I did Bottlegate.
Yes.
Wow.
The Bottlegate anniversary. So maybe we can talk about that a bit later. Jay Proctor saying, "You beat me to it, Simon. I was going to say I'm afraid of the Great Tribulation and going back to the Kingdom Hall to repent."
Well, sadly, Jay, it's sort of not quite so funny when you say that, because there have been some that we've heard of that have left some of our support Facebook groups and so on with announcements saying they're going back, and so some have been scared into it. Sadly.
Yeah, I'm hearing about that. Yeah, it is disturbing, and it makes you wonder kind of how, because my argument all along has been, look, you can't just simply say it's not true. I figured it out. I don't need to do any research. I just know in my gut that this isn't true, and therefore I'm going to stop going. You kind of need to, to use disease parlance, you need to inoculate yourself, knowing that this is a very pernicious set of beliefs that can reoccur. And the way to do that is through research. And that's why in my book, I make the point that the most important thing to do is research. Remind yourself of the reasons why it's not true, because otherwise, when something like the coronavirus comes along, immediately it's only natural that you're going to reach for all of this programming that's been lying dormant that says, it's the last days, you need to go back to Jehovah's organization.
Yes,
Exactly
because
right.
your heart becomes rightly disposed. And Jehovah and the
I'm being
angels
serious, Arthur. I'm being serious.
are
at this point.
rejoicing.
You've never been a
So
Jehovah's Witness. This is serious shiz. So
Yes.
go on,
Yeah.
go on, Sasha.
So it's all about, as you said, research, the truth about the truth, and it's propaganda. Whatever you want to do, we can play on their old advertise slogan. But that's right. Unless people have come to an accurate understanding as to whether the organization is true or not, it's very simple. It's either true or it's not. And if that's the case, then emotions can't be manipulated back in when some cataclysmic or tragic event happens and people feel guilted back in, because that means it's just an emotional decision that's been made. And again, I've got to wonder, when ones do that, do they think Jehovah's cool with them coming back based upon fear of some cataclysmic event?
And objective truth has nothing to do with emotions whatsoever.
Well said.
I think that's why I'm personally wary about this whole ex Jehovah's Witness thing, because I understand that at some point you're going to want to leave it behind entirely. You not want to you won't want to have reminders of JW Broadcasting, of the latest outrage. You just going to want to move on with your life. I do get that, but I also think that there's a very strong risk of denialism, of pretending this thing never happened when it did, of pretending this thing didn't change you as a person when it did, and of pulling the plug on debriefing yourself and going through this research phase prematurely. So you can kind of give yourself a clean bill of health and say, I'm fine to move on now, when it's almost like with antibiotics, if you don't take the full course,
right,
the thing can come back and it's now resistant to the antibiotics. And
exactly.
Yeah, that's a very good point you make. Yeah, we need to get to... Yeah, rather than it being a forced thing of I'm now going to stop being consumed by it, it should be a natural thing. We should be at the point where we've progressed, where we can watch something that we would ordinarily say was triggering from the organization. And we'll just wake up one day and realize it's no longer triggering anymore. That means we've fully inoculated ourselves. As you rightly say, you've taken the full course of the antibiotics. They've done their work. You can turn on broadcasting and just shrug the shoulders and go, meh, that's a bit silly, isn't it? Rather than having an emotional reaction. I know we joke about things being triggers and so forth. There'll always be something residual there. But when we can get to the point where it no longer bothers us, that's not something you can just define. I don't think we can get to that point and switch off, flick the switch. It just comes naturally after years of living a normal life, Sure.
I personally think that it's impossible to completely purge oneself of all remnants of the religion. All you can do is reach a point where you're managing it and it's not impacting you.
And sometimes it sticks to you even if you weren't technically a member of the organization.
Sure. Yeah.
And, Arthur's never been a member and he's still managing to spout off the... extremely triggering words and phrases. Joelle Brown, this is while I was reading, OMG, a word Lloyd doesn't know. But isn't it great that you can do that when you read books? You can come across new words that you've never heard of before. And that's how we expand our vocabulary, isn't it?
Yeah.
No,
like
we
the poliomyelitis thing last week.
Oh, yes. No, I thought we expanded our vocabulary by reading the Watchtower and Awake. After all, it was the equivalent of a university grad education, wasn't it? That's what we were
like
told.
The opposite of expanding your vocabulary. That's limiting your vocabulary.
Well, especially in translated versions, they really used some really fine words that are above the average.
Oh, okay.
Gene Khan says, is it Khan or Carney, Gene? I have had COVID symptoms for over a week, but unfortunately can't get tested here in UK. Not a key worker. That's disturbing. I'd keep an eye on that. And if things get serious, I think there are kind of ventilators being set up, aren't there? So yeah, keep an eye on that, Gene. That sounds disturbing.
Yeah. There's some very good checklists available on most of the government health systems to go through those symptoms first of all, and to see whether or not we qualify for that test. And I believe that there are ways where, if it is serious, you can put a notification into those respective authorities to almost get fast-tracked. I can't be 100% sure of every country, but I know that happens in some.
Joel Brown, saying the test for coronavirus is extremely invasive. Well,
so's the virus.
Yeah. It's one or the other, unfortunately.
Did we, on that note, did we hear Donald Trump's response to the test?
Oh, good grief! No.
Yeah. See if you can research that, everyone, on Google. When he was asked by a reporter what the test was like, and he was so dismissive of it. Well, it's a test. A lot of good doctors do these tests, and he had no idea what the test was. I think we may have chatted about this previously, but yes, I don't think he would have been as dismissive had he had the actual test done, which, as you say, Joel, is invasive. But gee, the alternative's a lot worse though than not getting tested.
Yeah, Rianne saying a swab from your throat. I honestly find my yearly exam at the gynecologist more invasive. Johnny Smith asking, do you know how preaching is working now? What are the Jehovah's Witnesses going to write on their report for March? I mean, goodness knows. I would imagine it's mostly happening on like a geographical basis, depending on what the local rules are, but probably lots of witnesses are suddenly inundating anyone they know who isn't a witness with text messages. That's all I can imagine.
Yeah,
and
text,
counting
phone,
and letters.
Letter writing's happening. I think, again, we mentioned this the other day. Letter writing to all homes, not just, or to many homes, not just the ones that ordinarily have locked gates or difficult to access. And they are specifically in the letters that I've seen around this area mentioning that no doubt you are fearful because of the rise in pestilences and so on. Did you know the Bible? And using that as the foot in the door way to spread the message. I find it very opportunistic and very, very, pretty gross way to try and spread a message.
Eric Larson saying letter writing mostly. My wife hasn't been doing anything lately. Yeah, I mean, there's surely an argument for just downing tools entirely at a time like this. Yeah. I mean, people just aren't. And frankly, if your religion relies on disaster and calamity to get its message across, what does that say about it? So
on that note, I listened back to your conversation with Covert from yesterday, and I think you both
well done for doing your homework there. So extra marks.
Well, I had nothing else to do. No, but the conversation and the direction that you guys were talking about, whether this is enough to break the what would we say, the injection of indoctrination that most witnesses have. They're breaking their routine of going witnessing. They're breaking their routine of going to the meetings. And it may just be enough for these ones to go, oh, gee, it actually is quite good not going witnessing. And I feel quite relieved not having to get ready for the meetings. And, if this goes on long enough, I don't think there'll be too many after the initial euphoria that'll want to be rushing back to the meetings and the witnessing routine. They might just, adopt this letter writing a little bit more.
Tracy Jeffrey saying, sorry I'm late. I was fighting some people in the store for toilet paper. Well, you made it eventually, Tracy, and hopefully you were victorious. Well Nesbo9 wants to know whether Arthur has had wildebeest breakfast now that we know that he is, in fact, a hunter-gatherer.
No, I haven't had breakfast yet.
No, but when you do, it will be something hairy and large.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, and with 70 currently watching, there's only one thing that I can think of that will... Hello, Melissa, by the way. There's only one thing I can think of that will satiate everyone's desire for culture, and that is without doubt to hear
Sasha's
from
poetry corner.
Arthur's song.
to hear from the world's greatest poet.
Or me. It never gets old, does it? Oh, gee. Okay. Here we are with a touch of levity, chatting together with randomness and brevity, knowing that many are doing it tough through these uncertain times that are certainly rough. But please be assured that humans will find a way to come through this all to a new, brighter day. As we work together and help our neighbour, here's one thought we want you to savour. Look at the downtime the planet is giving as a chance to grow qualities for our future living.
That was beautiful, Sasha. It actually moved me inwardly to tears. There is...
I might say it was definitely heart-jerking. It moved me to the Kingdom Hall and back, honestly.
Both of you
job,
sound
Sasha.
like you've been moved.
Yes.
You might need some toilet paper.
I may need time to recover, actually, emotionally, from the assault that my emotions have just been subjected to. There is, however, another poem which I have actually conveyed to you via the witchcraft of WhatsApp. If you check your WhatsApp, Sasha, we've had a poem from Stasia Salvaggio. Stasia says, Lloyd, I've been watching the lockdown live streams when I start work every morning. I'm currently working from home, so it helps make the morning more enjoyable. I've been disfellowshipped for 10 years. Earlier this month, on March 10th, 2020, was my 10-year freeversary, as I call it. Anyway, there was no poem on the lockdown live stream for today, March 31st. That's because Covert Fade is many things, including an international man of mystery, but poet, he is not. So I thought
the screen is black, Lloyd.
Well, that's Sasha. So okay. Thanks for letting me know. Sasha's poem Stasia's poem, which I've sent Sasha, seems to have rendered his internet null and void.
Can you hear me?
So I know what's happening. Sasha's turned his screen black so that he can read the poem.
Yes. Okay. Would you like me to?
Well, let me just finish the email first.
Okay, sorry.
So I thought I'd send one in that I wrote this morning. Hopefully you and the rest of the group will find it enjoyable. I love your videos, and they have helped open my eyes even further to what the truth really is. Thank you for what you do. I hope more people will listen and watch now that things are changing. Here is my poem. Sincerely, Stasia Salvaggio, pronounced... Sorry, I should have read that first. Pronounced Stasia Salvaggio. Or I got the Salvaggio right, I think.
Okay, well done.
So Sasha will now, Stasia, read your poem.
I must say, this is very good. Well written. Okay. The governing body says, it is the end. Tony Morris hopes to him our knees will bend. Oh, look, Stephen Ledd is making a face because the so-called apostates try to help the human race. We're all running out of toilet paper while Gary Bro tells Bethelites not to be a pillow raper. Covert Fade reads the news as Tony Morris drinks away his blues. Disappointed we aren't yet human hot dogs and hoping we'll perish in a bout of acid fog. The governing body wants doom and destruction, but COVID-19 had plans to make its grand introduction. So stay away and try to keep inside. Then you can watch the governing body make their inevitable slide.
Very nice, Stasia. And probably the one about pillows will render this video unmonetizable, but nevertheless, it was worth it.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. For summarizing the madness.
Well written. I
Very
must
well
say,
written.
I've been getting quite a few people sending messages through with
Congratulazione.
poems.
Yeah, there's. I think people need poetry, frankly, in these dark times, and Sasha is the person to provide it. We'll just take one or two more comments, and then I will surrender my channel to Arthur for his segment. And yeah, God help us all. Let's see here. Robert DS says, I came to see more poems today. Are there any about the final part of the final days of the final days? Well, we have just been attempting poetry in that direction. Hopefully you enjoyed them. Eric Larson says, we need 2 poems today, one for yesterday, one for today. Well, you've just had that, Eric.
Happy to oblige.
Indeed. Erica Ragni Fury says, good morning, Lloyd. Thank you for your amazing live stream, which is helping me to stay calm in this crazy time, all the way from Pretoria, South Africa. Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you for tuning in from all that distance away. Robert,
what's the situation like in South Africa? It'd be interesting if you could drop us a brief comment about that.
Robert,
the COVID situation.
Robert DS says, make sure there is music this time or I'll fall off my chair again. LOL. Listen, be careful what you wish for, Robert. Be careful what you wish for. Matthew Tino says, Arthur, it's good either way. Such a dreamboat. I think, Arthur, you seem to be crossing the divide in terms of gender with the support that you are enjoining. So, yeah.
No judgment here.
Yeah, we don't judge here on the Lockdown live stream. Simon Instone says they'll still be saying Armageddon will be happening any minute then. Susan Wheatley saying, this is the end of the world. Nice singing, Arthur. I love that song. It's very catchy and so apropos for these times. LOL. So, speaking of singing, perhaps we should do what I was saying we should all be wary of and surrender the channel to Arthur.
So let's see whether audio.
Probably I need to take it off that. And if you do your share screen thingy, hopefully it will work this time. And I will tell you immediately if we can't hear the audio. You bear with us, viewers.
Now let's see whether we can hear audio. Does audio work?
No.
No.
I can only hear it in your headphones.
Okay.
Can you unplug your headphones and try?
Yeah. Let's see.
Well, first of all, is this Google Chrome? And second of all,
it's Chrome. It's Chrome, and I didn't have the box to.
Well, there has to be a box in order for us to hear the audio. So it should say Chrome tabs on the far right-hand side, and there should be a thing at the bottom saying that you have to tick saying play audio.
Let's see whether does this have some settings here in the.
No, I think you're going to have to try and add it again. I'm going to remove it.
Okay.
And if you try adding it again, and this time select Chrome tabs, and at the bottom it should say play audio. It's just a tiny little thing. It's not very well advertised, but you have to check that box.
Will you allow StreamYard to share your screen? Yeah. Google Chrome, window or screen to share Google Chrome.
Chrome tabs at the. You have to select Chrome tabs. It's the furthest one to the right.
I don't have that.
Okay. Well, maybe if you send me the link, I'll do it at my end.
Okay. So
while you guys are working that out, can I share a nice little book that I've been flicking through and reading? The
By all means.
Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. Very interesting book. It's basically a nice way about how we can get back to the basics of what we need to be a success in life. I'll read you the little spiel at the beginning here. That Jonathan Haidt is a social psychologist at the NYU Stern School of Business. Really good book. If anyone just wants to delve into something like that, there's some fantastic chapters, excellent points about putting ancient wisdom and philosophy to the test of modern science. So if you feel like something, which we've all got plenty of downtime at the moment, check out that book. We were privileged to see him speak when he came here to Sydney. Interesting thoughts and topics, some controversial, some interesting. There's a book for you to check out.
Bloody hell, Arthur, you're making me log into all sorts of crazy stuff here. I thought it was just going to be a YouTube link. Sorry, viewers. I didn't realise that Arthur had this level of professionalism as a karaoke star. There's all sorts of accounts. So I'm in, but I obviously don't know which song. So you're going to have to do that in the private chat as well. Talk amongst yourselves, viewers. Oh, good grief. Okay. My files. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Bloody hell. But is this a karaoke so that people can see the words and sing along?
No.
Bending the rules a little bit of the segment, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, Arthur.
But people know the song, so they can sing along.
What he's doing at this point is just doing a cover rather than a genuine karaoke. But okay, we'll let him bend the rules a little bit. We'll give him that flexibility. And let me just sort this out. So bear with me one moment.
We're nothing if not professional here.
Absolutely. Right. Share audio. Share. Okay. And
no, not there. You go to the My Files.
Bloody hell, Arthur! If it wasn't so complicated, it would be easier, wouldn't it? It was in My Files.
Yeah, and you have that blue play icon at the left of the.
Look down here. This is My Files, and down there you have We Are the World.
No, you first go to the search bar, and because there are two We Are the Worlds there, one without and one with backing vocals.
Well, I'd be amazed if anyone's still watching at this point.
The one with the red faces, and you click the play at the left there. You don't click the
with
title
the red
of the song.
Faces.
Yes.
It's not red here.
That's the first one. Yeah, the first one.
Do I click the play?
Click play. Yes.
All right, come on, Arthur. Thank you. After this. Large screen, Arthur.
There comes a time when we hear a certain call, where the world must come together as one. There are people dying, and it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can go on, pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon make a change. We are all part of God's great big family, and the truth, that love is all we need. We are the world, we are the congregation, we are the ones that make a a better day, so let's talk it. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own life. It's true, we make a better day, just you and me. Send them a tract or a memorial invitation, and the lives will be stronger and free. As the slave has shown us by turning their pants tight, and so we all must lend a helping hand. We are the world, God's true organization. We are the ones who make a better day, so let's start preaching. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own life. It's true, we make a better day with the faithful slave. When you're locked inside, there ain't no hope at all. But if you just believe, come join us at the hall. Well, let us realize that's the truth we must research. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. We are the world, God's true organization. We are the ones to make a brighter day, so let's start preaching. Well, there's a choice we're making to make disciples for Christ. It's true, make a better day. Just you and me and Lloyd and Sasha. Oh yeah, sing along. It's the end of the world. We are the world. Through coronavirus lockdown, we are the ones to make a better day. So let's start preaching, guys. Oh yeah. Get out, brothers and sisters, and play some literature. Oh yeah, do it online as well. Oh yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. You're such a lovely audience.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Coronavirus, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ. I rebuke you to damnation in the flames of hell.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. That was certainly a unique experience in all of my years on the John Cedars channel. Nothing quite comes close to what we've just had, and it was certainly remarkable.
Oh, we love you, mate. That was brilliant. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
It was.
I had to make it up for the disaster that happened.
No,
that was brilliant. Loved it. Loved it. Did you see the beautiful comments flowing through? You had love from around the world, my friend.
Yeah, Eric Larson said, "I can't believe what I'm hearing. I think he speaks for many." I'm still.
But again, how does he mean it? Is he going, "I can't believe what I'm hearing"? Or
well, obviously,
yeah.
So, lots of disbelief, I think, among
cheers
the
to you, Arthur.
viewers.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. Where do we even go from
Arthur,
here?
That, well, where we go is that all of this came about because our dear friend and host refused to sing for people. So, circling back to that, Lloyd.
Yeah.
Give the fans
Christmas,
what they want.
good things, bad things.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can follow on from that, to be honest. I honestly think that Lloyd should record some new tracks for because he definitely has got some talent.
Yeah.
You know, Britain's got talent, Croatia's got talent, JW Survey's got talent. So obviously, evidently, apparently, we should.
Yeah. And I think a nice duet with Covert and Lloyd. They both got that, you know, refined, deep British voice that the viewers would love to listen to. Yeah.
Trish Weston says, I'm in New Zealand. We have 708 current cases of COVID-19 and 1 death. Many people not taking heed of the seriousness of it. Boating, swimming, and congregating. Population 4.5 million. Actually, Trish, in seriousness, similar population, you could say, to Croatia. And we've had 6, you've had 1. And actually 4.5 million, I think we're more like 5 or 6. So yeah, it's comparable figures. It kind of, again, I'm not an expert, but it would seem to confirm what I was saying earlier, that it does seem to be based on the population density to some degree. I don't know.
And Trish would be able to verify, but New Zealand had a very strict lockdown policy enforced early before the situation got too far out of hand. And yet, if that's still happening, it shows the veracity, or is that the word, the strength of this virus. That we need to be so careful. Anything that we think is a fair social distancing, double it. We need to be so careful.
Sean Keenan saying, I live in Australia. During coronavirus restrictions, there are exemptions. A person who is a priest, minister of religion, or member of a religious order going to the person's place of worship or providing pastoral care to another person. I am an atheist, so why am I not given the same waiver as a religious person? Yeah, there's all sorts of kind of issues. Yeah. I noticed that the NSS have been tweeting along those lines as well. I guess I'm trying to be as open-minded as possible. It's conceivable to me that there are some religious charities where pastors or religious leaders are rendering a service to the community. I just worry about like a blanket waiver so that anyone who's religious basically gets to flout the rules. So it is a little bit concerning.
There's an interesting point too about the lack of consistency with who can and can't go out, who can visit. Just on a slightly different note, the Australian laws or the rules between each state vary. For example, there was something posted up on the ABC News Network. They said, what if you want to go visit your partner, if you're not living together with your partner and you want to visit them to spend time together, what are the laws? Well, in some states, absolutely not. In other states, you can go if you're caring for them. In other states, there's an unclear direction given. So there's all of these little loopholes that people can use to still socialize, all of which is not going to help with containing this virus.
Melanie Yutzi says, love you guys, keep up the preaching and singing work. Judy Smith thinks that Arthur needs to write the songbook for jw.org. Surely it would be an improvement. Robert DS says, I'm afraid because of this voice, Lloyd might make his live stream pay to see. I'm sure there are people who would pay for that sort of experience, but it's not really the direction I want to take this channel in, to be honest. There are other
the viewers what they want.
There are other parts of the internet that are kind of set up more for that sort of thing, if that's your thing. And again, I don't judge. Deborah DeGustin says, I felt Michael Jackson's spirit in your version, Arthur.
Thank you very much.
Not sure if that's a good or a bad thing.
Gene Khan
says,
bring in Fifth. I would definitely bring in Fifth. And actually, there's more likelihood of that happening once the new schedule goes into operation. And I will be giving more details on that shortly.
Fifth could accomplish both things. He could accomplish the song and he could accomplish the rhyming. So we're both out of a job, Arthur. We're out of a job.
Good news from Rianne.
Fantastic.
My son will leave hospital today at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He's coming home. He's coming home.
That's so great.
Wonderful.
So delighted for you, Rianne. I know that's something you've been worried about for a few days now. So finally, you'll be reunited and finally you'll be able to lock down together and
Wonderful.
know that your son is safe. So that's wonderful.
Much love from us. And on that note, I wanted to spare a thought too for some of our supporters of the channel too, who are going through very, very difficult times at the moment with family members who are in hospital. And one of our friends, his son is suffering, is on last stages of cancer. And because of this lockdown, they can't even go to visit him and be with him during these really difficult times. And we've all been able to correspond and show some support and love, but just want to say publicly here that our hearts go out to ones in situations like that. And you know who you are, and we definitely feel for the situation you're going through. This is not usual times, and I wish we could do something to wave a magic wand and fix it, but please know that we're all there with you in spirit, and giving you the support that we can.
Indeed. Well said. Now, I'm just putting together a banner. I should have done this before the show, but I was just frantically typing the first banner just now. So it's a little bit complicated figuring out how I'm going to do the timings and what days and that sort of thing. So the easiest way of saying it is that in April, the lockdown live stream will be Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. However, the times will be different depending on what day. So for Mondays, this is the time. So does that make sense to you, Sasha? I've put next day because obviously it would be 6 a.m. Tuesday.
Tuesday, yes.
Does that make sense?
Perfect. Except we go daylight savings over the weekend, so that might change again.
Oh, do you really? Gosh.
I think so.
Bloody hell. That really... okay.
I'll double check that. Mm.
Well, anyway, I suppose the thing to say is that this applies, but the base time is the Europe one, 9 p.m. in Europe. And if you're in any doubt due to daylight savings, just do a calculation based on 9 p.m. Europe.
9 p.m. Central Europe.
Central Europe. Oh,
let's be clear on that.
Yeah, Central Europe.
Because because Romania is one of our ahead.
I know. So, so those are the times for Mondays. And I also need to write another banner, if you'll bear with me.
Sure.
So hopefully that will allow opportunity for, as you say, we've got Cliff, who we'd love to have on for the live stream. Mark and Kimmy O'Donnell, be great if they can join because it's some ridiculous time of the day over there at the moment. So yeah, viewers, stay tuned. You're going to get some variety of people that'll be here to entertain. And we've still got some other segments that Lloyd alluded to earlier in the week that will be making their debut. Some nice entertaining segments. I'll leave Lloyd to tell you in his due time. But yeah, hopefully we can have some of those from the rest of the team join us at the time that suits them a little bit better.
And even us in the panel are very excited about those new segments.
Yes. We've got some nice.
You guys are on a completely different script at this point.
Okay.
No, we are not. We are talking impromptu because we don't need any scripts to talk, right?
So yeah, we found a lot of people have been looking for ways to try and occupy their time, and there'll be some good suggestions on how to occupy your time during lockdown. We alluded to some the other day, and we'll come out with more later on. So I've got to share with you guys a really good thing that I saw on social media today. There was it was almost like a getting back to basics post that was put up. And a lot of people, of course, have found this whole situation completely different. They're used to hanging out with their friends. They're used to spending time together. And there's been a great new wave on social media of people hanging out and getting back to the old-fashioned playing board games together. Now, of course, they can't physically be there in the same location, but people are getting the same board games and setting them up and playing the respective roles via video chat. Now, it seems a little redundant to do that when we've got fantastic online gaming and multiplayers and we can do it that way. But it's been a really good thing that some of the kids have been rediscovering. Young kids have been discovering the joys of things like board games and playing with their friends online, sending moves, chess moves via online video chat and so forth. So yeah, that's been a really cool thing. And there's another thing that made itself very clear was people's value of their local shops and their local communities. The whole thing about shopping locally has been stressed to support the local businesses rather than just the massive multinationals. So when things start to open up again, the sense of community that's been created during this difficult time will probably have a really positive effect on a lot of local businesses and small businesses. So there's been people who have been banding together just to support those local businesses. So it's almost like we've kind of had that reset button hit and we're going back to the basics of what our communities, our towns, our villages used to be based on years ago. So who knows where this might lead us in the future.
Yeah.
Indeed. So just a recap of that first banner. So these are the times for Mondays. Again, there's a little bit of uncertainty over the Australian time due to the daylight savings, but the times for the other time zones should be accurate because I think both Europe and America have done their switch now. Wednesdays, we're going to be doing basically this time, the existing time, or the time that we went out today. So 8:30 a.m. my time, which I think for you, Sasha, was 5:30 p.m.
Yes.
So,
but again, that may go to 4:30.
It may go to 4:30. So just check the daylight savings time if you're in Australia. And yeah, you can see there straight away why it would be problematic for people in America. 11:30 p.m. the previous day in LA, 2:30 a.m. in New York, which is just silly. So I'm hoping that by switching the times up on different days, we'll reach more people in the Americas. And Saturdays will be Sydney 2 a.m. again, depending on the daylight savings. LA 8 a.m., New York 11 a.m., and UK 4 p.m. and Central European time 5 p.m. So hopefully that again will just provide a little bit more flexibility so that, I mean, on Saturdays, hopefully, even if you do happen to be working during the week and you're in America, it's just going to mean that in the mornings, you know, we're here and we're hopefully providing a little bit of distraction for you. Apologies again that we haven't had any voicemails. I do have like one or two in the pipeline, but for the most part, the voicemails I've been receiving haven't been related to the show. So if you are interested in having your message read out on the show, the address to use is speakpipe.com/Cedars. And we also have the option for people to send in a 30-second video message. You can do that and send the video file or a Google Drive link to cedars1929@gmail.com. Alternatively, if you want to do a slightly longer video message of, say, 2 or 3 minutes, what you could do is record an unlisted YouTube video and send me the link, and we'll put that as a screen share. So don't feel that you absolutely have to limit yourself to 30 seconds. If you want to do longer, you can still do that, but it would need to be as an unlisted YouTube video. So those are my announcements.
Excellent. And for everyone, bearing in mind the purpose of these chats, there's so many topics we can all cover with JW-related things, and that's absolutely appropriate. But particularly, too, we're trying to focus on how we can support one another in practical ways to get through this really weird, unusual time that the world is going through. So feel free to drop messages letting us know how things are going in your part of the world, how your community is, how your family's coping with things, positive, negative, whatever is going on, whatever your thoughts are. But yeah, particularly related to this whole end of the world coronavirus situation that we're going through.
Rianne saying that the latest update came in during the Arthur song. You're magic, Arthur. It seems Arthur has magical abilities to reunite families with his singing.
Yes, it does like this. Sorry.
Oh, good grief. No. No, I really will have to cut your feed if you get your cards out, Arthur. So, Yvette Piquet says that our preachers getting arrested for refusing to stop their church services here in the United States. It's something that needs to be taken very seriously. And I'm not convinced that, religion should get a free pass at times like this. Although, again, I try to keep open-minded and remember that it's not inconceivable that some religions are doing good in the community. It's just that, again, everyone needs to abide by the same rules. Rianne saying, can't stop smiling, bless her. Simon Instone saying, one pastor has died because he refused to stop. Well, again, it's for their own benefit, isn't it, that they need to heed these instructions. Very sad, but not completely unexpected. Nesbo9 definitely down with having Fifth make an appearance on the channel. Hey, if I can get through to his people, because he's rising quickly in the rap world as things stand. So yeah, if I can get him on the channel for a lockdown live stream, that'd be fantastic.
And if anyone hasn't bought or downloaded his tracks yet, please go and do it, because honestly, his work is amazing. The lyrics speak to all of us. So if you haven't had a chance to check out his stuff, there's the clips on YouTube, but download the tracks from your music provider of choice, iTunes, whoever you use. Support our mate Fifth. He's done an amazing job.
Frank Rizzo saying, we are not allowing anyone to visit their family members at the hospital I work at. Well, thanks for working at your hospital, Frank, and providing much needed services at this time. Eric Larson saying, Sasha, you can't stop poetry. That will always be yours. I'd be interested to know what Sherry would think about that, and whether she is similarly supportive of Sasha's poetic aspirations.
Yeah, I'm glad she's not here today.
Jay Proctor saying, so glad to hear that, Rianne. Everyone's celebrating along with Rianne on the lockdown live stream. Gene Khan saying, brilliant news. Rianne saying he lives in Liverpool and we're in the Netherlands. No hugging. So I'd be interested to know how that would work logistically, because presumably virtually all the flights are now, I don't know how you'd be making any money at the moment if you're an airline. So hope he manages to. No, I hope he manages to get to you fairly quickly now that he's been released. Joelle Brown says, at our hospital, we have family and friends visiting through windows from the outside. Yeah, that does sort of make sense. Yeah.
Beautiful.
No,
yeah.
I was thinking that Rianne's son is getting home there in Liverpool. Not coming home to the Netherlands.
Oh, right, okay, maybe, yeah. But that's a shame, though, isn't it? You'd still want to be reunited with them, wouldn't you? But I suppose that does make sense, yeah.
But the thing is that he's being extradited and he's getting better.
Indeed.
Excellent.
Simon Instone saying only virtual hugs and plenty of them. Gene Khan says, has covert fade faded?
It's in the process of being faded.
No one really understands or can understand the movements of covert fade.
International man of mystery, more than Austin Powers.
He is an international man of mystery. That must be stressed. And probably if he's not here, it's because he is saving the world somewhere in some way, shape, or form.
He's got his own research lab.
Probably engaged as we speak in some kind of physical altercation with an agent somewhere in Russia or somewhere. But that's the lifestyle he lives, and we respect it here on the Lockdown live stream and fear him in many ways. Matt Paul Mijeski says, Tampa megachurch pastor arrested after leading packed services despite safer at home orders. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it, when you think about it, that some churches, and it must be stressed, some churches, I wouldn't expect all religions are taking such an approach, but the fact that some would consider themselves to be the exception is just incredibly arrogant.
If he's the one that ended up getting sick and losing his life, which I think that might be the one you're referring to, Paul, but certainly one pastor had that happen. I think he's prime candidate for this year's Darwin Awards. If you've never researched what the Darwin Awards are, jump online and have a look at that. But yeah, certainly a great example of somebody who could win the top prize.
Robert DS says they used to knock on my door to give me magazines, but I sent them away. Full hands. Nowadays, I'm the one who is knocking on doors to ask for magazines to use as toilet paper. Fair enough. I don't know what you mean by full hands, but fair enough. Let's just see here. Yeah,
thanks for all the
more
comments,
questions
everyone,
about
too.
whether the ministry is going on. I can only imagine that the ministry is basically non-existent at the moment in most countries. I think, apart from anything else, if you did try to do door knocking as a Jehovah's Witness, you'd be risking the wrath, wouldn't you, of householders? And it could be argued that you would be bringing Jehovah's name into reproach, wouldn't you, by breaching the local orders to peddle religion on people's doorsteps.
Yeah.
Rianne's saying he lives in Liverpool with his fiance. Well, at least he'll be reunited with his fiance. I had in my mind this kind of dramatic reunification between Rianne and his son, but like you say, the main thing is he'll be allowed home with his family. So that's lovely to hear. Tamar, I did receive your email and I will be replying. That's all I can say at this stage. We're very excited to involve you in future lockdown live streams. And you've given us a lot of information, so I just want to make sure I digest it properly before I just fire off a reply.
Thanks, Tamar. And again, that just illustrates something we've mentioned previously. We are trying very hard to get to every single email. We don't get a chance to respond to everyone immediately. There are quite a few emails that I need to attend to, and we thank everyone for sending those emails through. But we also try and find the right person to respond to the right email within our team or the right resources to hand on. So be patient with us. We are getting to all of those emails. And we do appreciate that you feel comfortable reaching out to us and sharing your story, sharing your situation. We're not experts. We don't claim to be experts on everything, but we certainly can be, as we've said before, the soft landing place. So if you feel like reaching out, we would happily receive those emails.
Deanna Marino says, look up fifth, cost of doing business. Yes, thanks for that shout out. He's done two now, hasn't he? Cost of doing business, and I can't think what the other one's called. But I like both of them, but the most recent one I most relate to personally. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And, buy the tracks. Buy them, download them.
Yeah, give him a leg up with that.
Sorry, I had to jump out for a second.
Unforgivable, Arthur. Unforgivable. But you made it up with your performance. Oh, good grief! You made it up with your performance earlier. Nesbo9 says, "Weren't you going to talk about Bottlegate?" Well, I did mention that, didn't I? And it's the anniversary of Bottlegate. And it's interesting to see what impact it's had, because when you think about it, it's fascinating that just a few seconds of footage taken by someone in a liquor store has completely impacted on our narrative when we talk about Tony Morris. Because before Bottlegate, we used to talk about how obnoxious he is and the whole tight pants thing and his crazy ideas. But the Bottlegate thing has just allowed us to have an insight into at least partly where all this madness is coming from, and the fact that much of it is more than likely alcohol fueled. It does put things in perspective and deepen our understanding of what's going on in this guy's head, does it not?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you one good thing that Bottlegate did, or one interesting thing that Bottlegate did. I don't think there's any time I walk past a bottle shop or a liquor shop, I can't help but have a look at Macallan's and Jameson's now. He's certainly put those brands at front and centre for all of us in the XJW community. We know where they're stocked and what the prices are. So well done, Tony. Maybe you deserve a sponsorship deal with Macallan or Jameson.
Well, that's actually Jehovah's hand working, guys.
Unfortunately, we've lost Arthur's audio for reasons that... for reasons. So, he's unmuted himself. Damn you, Arthur. Damn you. But yeah, it's definitely changed the conversation a little bit, and I would be interested to know whether there was any spike in Macallan's sales around April of 2019. That would be fascinating.
We all bought one. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it was interesting. I heard you and Covert spoke about that yesterday, and I think that topic is still up in the air to find out whether or not he actually did get reprimanded or at least spoken to. And I know that Covert made an interesting point. Well, who's going to counsel Tony Morris? Who's going to sit him down and say, perhaps, what you did wasn't necessarily wrong, but was it the wisest thing to do? I don't think anybody will counsel him. And yes, it's just very interesting to see whether or not he got any sort of discipline out of the situation, you might say.
I think the only way you can get into trouble as a governing body member, which we saw in the case of Ray Franz, is if you get involved or you're perceived to get involved with apostasy. So if there's any kind of suspicion that you are having conversations behind closed doors and spreading ideas that the organization doesn't approve of, that would probably lead to you being booted off the governing body very quickly. But for almost everything else, it seems that someone like Tony Morris in particular will be untouchable. I mean, for him to be on the annual meeting platform only 6 months later in an inebriated state, basically for me sends a message of, you can't touch me. I can basically do whatever I want, and unless you can literally pull me over and have me on camera being breathalyzed, no one's going to believe you, and no one's going to pay attention to what you're saying, even though you've got
driven lies.
Even though you've got the footage of me filling my trolley with whiskey, doesn't make any difference. I'm still untouchable. So that's the message.
It doesn't bother the friends, does it?
Yeah, that really does speak to the double standards. We've all discussed this at length before, but an ordinary Jehovah's Witness would be reprimanded for perhaps not living wisely, or perhaps not being free from accusation. They would
not being exemplary.
Exactly. And yet he gets to get away with it purely because of his station in the organization, his position in the organization. If that doesn't prove it's a man-made organization, nothing does.
Indeed. Judy Smith saying, my church only has about 200 people, but we're doing everything online right now due to the stay-at-home orders in Kentucky, USA. Safety first. Well done, Judy. Fantastic to know that there are people conducting their worship in a responsible way. Jay Proctor saying, look at Liberty University, reopened and now infected. Yeah, it really just isn't worth taking any risks. Eric Larson says, shouldn't we all have a whiskey? Well, as we discussed in yesterday's episode, there are some, of course, like Arthur.
I'll go water.
Oh, you've got water today. Usually it's a glass of wine, isn't it? But
a wise man once said that you can wake up with a headache if you have too much. So.
Indeed. Don't risk headaches. It's just not worth it.
Wise man say. No, I'm not singing.
Sorry, I thought we were having a reprise of your... So yeah, Ultraviolet Dragon says happy bottleversary to everyone.
I like that.
Amen.
Simon Instone says cheers. Eric Larson says, now I can't stop hearing Tony slurring his words all of the time.
Yeah. There's definitely been, when we look at the history of his talks, both on broadcasting or on the recorded talks from conventions, there's definitely a decline. And I know we all try and be as fair as possible and say there may be other factors at play, but there's definitely evidence of something affecting his delivery, whether it be alcohol or perhaps medication. Something is certainly affecting him, and he's certainly not in the bright state that he may have been in years past.
Eric Larson also saying, I can't imagine that clown-faced Let giving Tony Morris any sort of counsel or discipline. I can imagine it being an awkward meeting the next Wednesday when surely by that point the governing body knew about it. I can't imagine them not talking about it. I can just imagine it, however, being a case of how do we
it
keep
has come to the attention of the governing body that you, Brother Morris, were a bit too inebriated at the last talk. How
What are
do
you talking
you
about, Stephen?
comment
Doesn't bother
that?
me. Doesn't bother me.
I can
Stephen,
imagine
get
it
back
being
in
a
your place.
case of them wanting to keep a lid on it rather than rebuking Tony Morris in any way. Yeah.
My dear brother Tony, please refrain from that behavior, please.
We did an inventory and there is more alcohol going out than there is coming in.
Rianne saying, Arthur, you're terrible, touching all our nerves. Let's see here. Julia Van Herk says maybe he was bulk buying as they claim to have known what was going to happen. Indeed.
It wouldn't have lasted this long.
They had the inside knowledge, didn't they? And Tamar Jane saying, OMG, seriously, has anyone actually contacted Macallan to let them know that they have a minor scandal going on? I'm sure they're just happy about, again, any spike in sales due to the
It's more publicity for them.
Yeah.
What's this one here? Sorry, it just keeps skipping. When I'm scrolling through the comments, every now and then it skips forward. Nesbo9 on Twitch says an ordinary witness would be counselled for not wearing smart clothes to a Zoom meeting. Indeed. It's one rule for the governing body, another for the rank and file.
Absolutely. And Nesbo, thanks for the reminder about the Zoom meeting. I must share, we saw an amazing clip of the meetings, of course, are now being conducted via Zoom, of a dear old sister at a particular meeting who hadn't realized that other people can see her in the chat. So she was getting up and pouring herself a glass of wine and sitting back down on the couch all relaxed and pouring another glass of wine while the rest of the congregation were all watching her. So, yes, I don't think every witness has quite grasped the concept of what these video chat meetings are all about and that people can see one another at the other end.
Yeah, there's going to be some interesting stories resulting from these Zoom meetings, I'm sure. Vicky Wells says, morning all, just made the last 10 minutes live. I have been readjusting to the time change, loving the chat as always. Lovely to have you with us, Vicky. And please do, if you are joining us late in the chat, please do be sure to go back to, once it's on YouTube, go back to the time when I'm sharing all the new schedule basically for the lockdown live stream, because we'd love to have as many of you as possible for the
please go back and check out Arthur's song if you missed that, Vicky.
Yes, if you are in need of a reminder that you are alive, definitely play that and it will confirm that your senses are operational. Jay Proctor says, I may have to go back today and watch Bottlegate again today. Why not? The video did actually get, I think, it must be well over 100,000 views by now.
I think it's one of your biggest, yeah.
So, definitely. Why not? Why not give it another watch and pour yourself a Macallan's if you have any to hand and enjoy that. So that brings us to 90 minutes for today's
145,000 views.
Lockdown live stream. Did you say 144,000 views, Arthur?
45.
I'd prefer it was 144.
Wouldn't that have been brilliant?
Yeah.
But it's been an absolute pleasure having you both on the show. I will always remember your singing, Arthur.
Pleasure is mutual, as always.
It touched our heart in
it's
ways
a memory
that we can't even describe.
It's a memory that is indelibly etched on my subconscious. Yeah. And Sasha, beautiful poetry. We look forward to more of that in future shows.
Thank you, guys. It was great to hang out with you and everyone again today.
Yeah.
It's been a good show. So thanks also to all of you who tuned in. Don't forget that you need to keep tabs on the facebook.com/Lloyd Evans Cedars. Where is it?
That's it. Yep.
There.
Little to the left.
There. and if you want to stick it to Zuckerberg, that's the address you need, twitch.tv/Lloyd Evans. But you can always catch up later on YouTube. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Don't forget to be here for future lockdown live streams. But it's been a pleasure doing this, and I hope you'll have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay alive. See you soon.
Take care,
and
everyone.
as always, thank you for watching.